I've made this video before, but it is buried under all my content. So let me go ahead and say this again. Whenever I hear a Muslim say, "Why didn't Jesus say, 'I am God, worship me'?" it shows me you have absolutely no idea what Christians believe. And this doesn't just go for Muslims, but they're the main group that use that argument. Like, congratulations, you're absolutely right. Jesus never says the words, "I am God, worship me." But let's dissect that real quick. Let's talk about why he doesn't say those words. Number one, Jesus did not arrive on earth to bring us a new God. If Jesus shows up and says, "I am God, worship me," then we worship Jesus and we no longer think about the Father. Jesus didn't come to bring a new God to us. He came to reestablish the relationship that we had with the Father by bringing reconciliation. This is why Jesus never lets us not think about the Father. In everything that Jesus does, the Father is brought to the focus point. Number two, Jesus did not come to earth to make a power play and show off the power of God and tell people to worship him. I don't know if you know this, but Jesus is the same God of the Old Testament. He has made himself known. He doesn't owe anybody anything like that. If God wanted to tell us to worship him, he wouldn't have to come into the flesh to do so. And then number three, if Jesus came here and said, "I am God, worship me," and opened the heavens and millions of angels poured down, it would be counterproductive to what he came to accomplish, and you and I would all be headed to hell. You see, Jesus didn't come to do any of that. He came to set us free from sin. Like, I want to ask you a serious question. If Jesus comes into the flesh, walks amongst us, but then opens up the heavens, pours down angels on earth, shines bright like the sun, who's going to kill him? Who's going to even try? Therefore, Jesus doesn't die on the cross. Therefore, you and I are still dead in our sins. Just take a look at the transfiguration for a moment. He takes James, John, and Peter up on the mountain, and then his face shines like the sun, and he brings forth Elijah and Moses. You want to talk about a demonstration of "I am God"? Check it out. The Jews at that time refer to the scriptures as the law and the prophet, and the law is represented by Moses, and the prophets are represented by Elijah. So Jesus brings forth Moses and Elijah, the two that they look upon, and shows, "I'm in control. Even they submit to me." And his face is shining like the sun. Oh, and the Father speaks from heaven and says, "This is my son, whom I'm well pleased with." But then what does Jesus say? Don't tell anyone about this until the Son of Man has been risen. He didn't want people to know. You could say Jesus was on a secret mission. He would get upset with people for not knowing who he was. And he would say to them, "If you knew my Father, you would know me." But at the same time, he would run from the people when he knew that they would try to make him king because of all of his miracles he was doing. We see this in scriptures. He said, perceiving that they were going to try and take him and make him a king, he dipped up out of there. Jesus might not say the words, "I am God, worship me," but he walked as God and demonstrated all of the things that God demonstrates. He demonstrated he had the authority of God. I mean, let's be honest. A person doesn't have to say who they are title-wise when they walk in that title. Jesus speaks as the authority of God. He walks and acts like the authority of God. The only thing he doesn't do is say, "I am God, worship me." That sounds like something a human would think of in the first place, because we feel like we need to make our power known and be like, "Worship me." God is bigger than that. Even when Pilate and them had him on the stage looking all foolish, he remained quiet because he didn't care how they viewed him, because he knew who he is. God, unlike us, isn't going to get offended at us and be like, "I have to prove myself now." Jesus says, "None of you take my life. I lay it down." He even says that if this was my kingdom, my angels would come from heaven to get me right now. So why doesn't Jesus say, "I am God, worship me"? Because that's not what he came to do. However, everything he spoke was clearly in the authority of God. When he says he has the authority to forgive sins, that he is Lord of the Sabbath. He says that man wasn't made for the Sabbath, but the Sabbath for man. So the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. Like, yo, the Sabbath doesn't predate you like some uncreated holy thing. I made the Sabbath for you, so I am Lord even on the Sabbath. Even the audacity to think that that's a good question to a Christian just demonstrates you have no idea what we're talking about. Like, I'm glad that Jesus wasn't identified as God because they put him on the cross. My sins were paid for. And what's funny is these people that want to be very specific and technical and say, where does Jesus say, I am God, worship me, will ignore things like the apostles worshiping him after he rose from the grave. You know, in Luke 24 and at the end of the Gospel of Matthew when it says they worshiped him. Or what about the book of Revelation when Jesus says he is the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last? This is a direct claim of being God himself. If you've ever used the argument that Jesus never said, I am God, worship me, as your reason for denying what Christians believe, then you have no idea what Christians believe. God bless and go in peace.